You have now tuned into Insight Sundays, the show that brings you relevant news, youth topics with a new mission and focus for our communities. Here is your host, Adrian Mickens.
What's going on, Indianapolis? It's your main man, Adrian Mickens, with another edition of Insight Sundays. Today in studio, we have the lovely
Ashley Gurvitz.
Ashley Gurvitz is in the house. And as always, right before we start the show, we're going to give a special shout out to all of our sponsors, which is Andrew J. Brown Academy, Buttons and Bows Hair Salon, Bethesda Southeast Campus, RNS Menswear, Studio 14 Hair Salon, Sam Ash Music Store, and Beach Grove Bible Church. And our newest sponsor, Lighthouse Academy Charter School. So we're going to go ahead and get into today's broadcast. But one more right before we get there, I want to send a special shout out to my newborn child. It's a girl. Her name is Tamika Michaela Lynn Miggins. Shout out to my fiance, Danielle Logan, and Mr. Caleb. If you can hear me, guys, I know you guys are probably watching the stream. I do love you all very, very much. But the topic on hand today is what we are getting ready to have to deal with. And if I had the sound effect of dun, 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 I would definitely play that right now myself. And that is Trump's inauguration. Yeah. And I hate to say it that way, like a dun, 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 in a bad way, but I'm saying that in the fact of light of we now have to face a reality that most people didn't think we would have to face. People played it off during the election season as though as this couldn't be true. People couldn't be that dumb. People couldn't be that stupid, or people couldn't be that ornery and do something that would totally disrupt the country in such a way. And people did it anyway. At least half the country did, and that is fact. So now we're in a standpoint where the inauguration is coming up. Whether you like them, love them, hate them, respect them, disrespect them, anything far and few in between, he is going to be your president. So now what are we going to do? And so today's topic is called the future of our nation. In the studio today, we have Ashley Gurvitz, who is a proactive and active member, not only with the community, but with the State House. What all do you do at the State House downtown?
So I do a little bit of everything. I actually work as a legislative assistant for our Indiana House Democratic Caucus. But outside that role, I feel like it's very important to take knowledge learned there, but give it back to communities. So right now I serve as the president of our Indiana Young Democrats and also president for our Marion County Young Democrats. So got a county and statewide perspective of what's needed. All
right, so we have somebody that's talking on the show today that is relevant and it's going to give us inside information directly on what to do. And we'll have those topics within the show today to get you guys up to speed. As always, if you want to make your comments, questions, and all of your concerns, go directly to our Facebook page, which is Insight Sundays. Once again, that is Insight Sundays. We are streaming live, so go ahead and tune in. Let us know how you feel. I will try to answer your questions as this show goes along so that you guys are actively involved within the program. So let's get right into it. First off, let's talk about the election night. Let's just start from pure scratch. The election night, because I remember we had our interview. It was like November 6th, and it was right before the 8th, and we were like, and I watched that tape again, and we were just like everybody else. We was like, this cannot be true. This is not going to happen. Let's just tell everybody what to do, and we'll just, that'll be our security blanket. Well, that didn't happen. And that night, we all watched things go down and down, up, and then just all the way down by the hour. So what did it feel like election night?
You know, it's one of those aspects of where did things go wrong that continue to cycle the mind today, the night when the election results were coming in. And it was just one of those quick things of where everything's always been proactive. Now we're switching on the reactive to say, what things can we do in our communities to help reassure that things can be okay?
Yes.
From being downtown at one of the watch parties, and we're like, are you sure that stat is right? Like, is this really what's polling?
Yes.
To then going to a smaller gathering afterwards with a group of, young professionals and so forth, and we're like, all right, like, this is true. I mean, does this kind of remind us of 2000 when the end of the world is coming? I mean, there are so many sense of emotions that were coming out on election day.
Yes.
The means of fear or confusion, anger, but I think also in retrospect, there were many that were happy that we do now have, President-elect Trump that will be taking office.
Yes.
But, there's that but, with the excitement that's there for the office, is there still that bridge of making sure those that feel angry, that feel fearful about what's to come, that they may be able to still feel like their voices can be heard?
Yes.
And be integrated into what's needed for the next term of presidency.
Correct.
So,
yes. And, what you said was very key, and that is bridging the gap.
yes.
The truth is the truth. We have, I don't even say necessarily just Hillary Clinton supporters, but for the sake of the election, it was 50-50, and we're gonna get into that a little bit later on. I got that down on my note list on the numbers, because we know technically she won by the people. But of course, there's always that loophole way, and as a strategist, which is Donald Trump in a sense, he played his field correctly on how to win. And if it's not all about the numbers, but about a certain particular area, then we'll go for it. We're going to get to that here in just a second. So right after the election night, everybody's hopes was, half of the people's hopes was down.
Yes.
They were crushed.
Yes.
Then we moved on until the very next day, which was a whole nother realm of forceful disappointment. We've had marches and rallies literally the day after. From your perspective, from a legislative perspective, do you think that marches are beneficial? Do you think that it will change laws, or do you think people's just wasting their time going up and down the street?
Well, I say this because I am one that will be out to go rally. In today's society, where we feel like there are limited roles where we can categorize where people can do work, I feel like the aspect where peaceful protest, it's upon our Constitution itself. It is a rightful mean where individuals are able to express their feels, their opposition, and in other means show solidarity that if something don't feel right, I know I'm not going crazy internally by myself, but there are other individuals too that feel the same way that I do. So as far as the rallying, I have much admiration for it. But the key is being peaceful. And again, that may make individuals upset. But again, are we doing the peaceful resistance as far as what is indoctrined within our First Amendment rights?
Yes.
But then also making sure we take that energy of gathering with one another together to then put together a very strategic plan that can lead to plans of action as far as integrating it with calls of opposing those that may have like terms of Donald Trump. Today's a prime example. There was a big Affordable Health Care Act rally that was at the State House. There was a plan of action after they rallied where now they're making phone calls to Congress, just to show opposition. So I say go for it, just as long as we're making sure we're mobilizing for the right reasons behind it.
And what you said is putting action behind what you're doing, because if you keep knocking on somebody's door long enough, they're going to answer.
Yes.
If you keep doing it long enough, it's like calling somebody and just annoying them and annoying them and annoying them. Either going to cut off their phone and just try to ignore you completely. But if they do that, then you know you got them.
Right.
So you might as well just keep knocking at the door till somebody answers and you get your point across. Now the key is this: I know for most listeners, especially our young listeners, is saying, I ain't knocking on nobody's door. I just want to do what needs to be done and get it over with, meaning like forcefully protesting. Now that leaves us between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., which always is generally the topic. And I've always said till today, for anybody who knows me, if I was around during the Civil Rights era movement, I would have followed Malcolm X. And that is because a lot of the things that he said were and are true. And that is, we're playing a game as far as not having our own. Like, as a child, if you had something and if somebody else had something and you wanted it, my parents would tell me, don't worry about it, I'll get your own. If somebody didn't want to share with you, I'll get your own. I'll get your own toy. You'll get your own bike. You don't have to worry about that. And so that works, but it may not work within the realm of what I'm talking about as far as like education. Right. The civil rights era where we had the Little Rock Nine who had to have the federal marshals walk them into the school just to be able to go to school in Arkansas. You see what I mean? And so is it too much where Malcolm X said, hey, let's have our own schools, let's do this way? Is that bad or is it good?
I mean, I'm going to kind of play the question back, but in another sense. It depends on what the intended outcome is. Gotcha. And meaning, like, if today's society that, we might be in the intersection of having the MLKs of the world, but we might have the Malcolm X's. But it is, again, intended on what we are trying to do in community. Like, and it's so tricky. When I think of, for instance, in honor of MLK's birthday today, right? The quote that always comes to mind is, where do we go from here? Community or chaos?
Yes.
If, for instance, in the means of building community, empowering community, understanding the self-attainment that of our own individual roles can help make us be better individuals to collaborate with one another, that all helps. But I am one where, this is me, I'm one of peace, and I understand the resistance, but it is also understanding too the cultural enrichment I've been around, where I've had family members practice the peaceful things without the destruction. But again, I don't want destruction. But we do have to understand, if aggravating the base, if that gets attention, like, that's all right. It's kind of tricky to really give an answer, but
it's a balance. And like I said, I understand both, and don't get me wrong, because this is his day, and I love Martin Luther King Jr. like anybody else does. Just because he didn't do it exactly like Malcolm X did it. The ironic thing is that at the end of, I won't even say their careers, of their lives, because they were in the prime of their careers. They were both in their 30s. So in the prime of their careers, they both had a different self-reflection, because we, for those who don't know, our younger audience, definitely intertwined. And what killed Malcolm X and what killed Martin Luther King Jr. was the exact same thing, and that was speaking against authority. Bottom line, two different ways, because within the Muslimic nation and the federal government killed Malcolm X. They worked together to do that. And for Martin Luther King Jr., I won't say that it wasn't around in his camp, but it was just strictly the federal government who took him out. I'm just being realistic. As far as I know, and the research that I've done, and I'm a very strong avid reader and studier of the civil rights movement, for anybody who was assassinated, I'm just only going to speak the truth on the assassination portion. So on that case, and on that note, we live into a time where it just follows into the civil rights part, where we're dealing with disrespect all over again. We've seen, it ain't even worth even saying, we've seen video after video after video, things that they didn't even have in that time. We literally see what's going on in different cities, countries, states, whatever. We see the blatant disrespect, and it's not accounted for. There was a woman in Kentucky. JCPenney had two different incidences within the last month and a half of people disrespecting a customer, disrespecting another customer. One was Latino and one was black. I literally seen a man, a worker physically restrain a African American woman, like literally, like wrapped her, put her down. I can't remember the exact reasoning. Now, listen, I'm all for, if somebody is doing something wrong, or they're like stealing or something like that, and they're trying to run, I understand. That was not the case in this issue. And he was physically restraining that woman. And that's where I always say where Malcolm and Martin come into play, because I'm going to tell you, if anybody puts their hands on for any woman for that matter, but definitely the women in my life, I'm telling you, I'm taking you out. There is no let's have a talk about this tomorrow, or watching like the young lady who had a can't remember what state it was, but she was at a party and the officers took her down. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but the officers took her down, and there was a man that was just watching this officer tackle this girl, arrest this girl, and physically like toss her around. So from a woman's perspective, what do you think about that?
You know, I honestly feel like, of course, we know there are issues as far as what we are entailing with law enforcement, and the blatant disrespect that we are having with one another, as far as if it is the color of our skin or the pre-assumptions that they may think from our racial aspects of who we are. That is a matter where solutions do need to be looked upon so we can help fix those aspects. Like for the incidents where literally we're talking about the two things down in JCPenney, right? When we have individuals in society that automatically pre-assume who I am or my culture, then that shows that there is a marginal difference, that people just don't know the true meaning of what cultural aspects are. You know, so we need to be doing more as far as the cultural enrichment, as far as making sure others outside of our own truly know how to embrace what we do amongst each others. That it is not always what is preconceived or seen with the viral video post of, you know, the negativity. We have to do better amongst that. But also there's the accountability with those that do have areas of authority to make sure that there are the means of the implicit bias training to help make sure there is the appropriate means of, if it's from law enforcement, the community policing. And it's great to say it on paper, and it's great to have it in the means of speaking it, but it means speaking it into existence.
Correct. And
making that two-way street, that we are willing to help learn from one another. So the difference. I know wholeheartedly that in areas that we don't feel like we are at, what are we doing within our own or so forth to feel like we can be in the same areas that maybe I've pressed this before, like prime example, if we're like, oh, we just don't see enough minorities in law enforcement, or we don't see enough politicians. They're there, but what are we doing to help spotlight those that are, you know, trying to help combat those stigmas that we have, like amongst law enforcement or so forth. So the advancement, the promotion, and even the retention of making sure minorities in certain fields, you know, get the spotlight and the extra reinforcement that they are getting, you know?
Correct,
I mean, and when it comes down to the blatant disrespect, nobody at all should be disrespected.
No.
And that comes down to making sure as well, like collectively in society, we're doing more to understand the things that we think may make us different. I mean, really, how different are one another? Okay?
No, that's true.
And we can add if it's white, black, Latino, African American.
Exactly.
Democrat, Republican, if we're getting back into the swing of politics, we have to strip away some of that, but then get back to the core of one another. And those intrinsic virtuous things that we know we all should be giving to one another. That's going to make everything springboard.
Because see, and along the lines of what we're talking about, when I'm meaning specifically with the disrespect, it's just not with African Americans. I'm talking about everybody. With every ethnicity, because there are African Americans that disrespect the Caucasian culture, the Latino culture, Latinos disrespecting the black culture, the Caucasian culture. It's a full. It just has to stop. If we want, forget the Band-Aid, forget everything. We need a whole new paper, clean slate to start from scratch. And I believe for the longest, and we're getting ready to take a break here in just a second, I believe for the longest, and I still do believe that our generation, which is the 80s babies, were the ones who were going to change that tide of the integration between all cultures. You know, when I went to school, I seen Caucasian, black, white, Korean, Chinese, Japanese. I went to school with everybody, and I loved it. And I would have it no over the way. because I love that's just my personality. I love everybody. I hang out with everybody. There is no discrimination with me. There is a complete humongous gray area when it comes to that, but I also still do take care of my own. I don't look for anybody else to do anything that I'm supposed to do first. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. Right before we do that, again, I want to let everybody know to tune in on Facebook Live, Instagram, Twitter, and that is all at Insight Sundays. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, Indianapolis. It's your main man, Adrian Mickens, once again with the second half of Insight Sundays. And we're going to pick up on our topic at hand today, and that is the future of our nation and the transition of power that's getting ready to occur with Donald Trump from Barack Obama. Let's kind of tether back into the portion of Obama's farewell speech. I watched the whole thing. What did you think about that?
Tears the whole time. Very inspiring. It was also very fulfilling that with President Barack Hussein Obama, I'm going to give him full respect there, is that he was able to not only live the aspect of being a grassroots organizer to going to state senate, then going to the national, Congress aspect, to branch over to be president. 8 years of presidency. That for me and for others has led to a lifetime of inspiration. And to realize that when January 20th comes, that it's not going to be a somber day, but it is a day that, with the respect that I have of what I've been able to learn from him, that he's equipped us with tools to be able to look past who is going to hold that very main seat. So very inspiring, able to reflect on the ethical aspect we know that office should hold. Nobody can tell us different, that the first family had any major scandals. There's no gates that came out. I mean, just an ultimate symbolic aspect of what we know, even in the African American families, how we can lead, and even from the presidency roles of building those relations, being the bridges that, Adrian, you explained earlier, as far as the 80 babies being the bridges. I mean, on all aspects, I just felt very much inspired, and know that there's still a lot more work that we can do.
At this point, we know that the inauguration is coming up, and it's past for me to talk in disappointment about it, because I want to talk in terms of business now. For those who do not understand or really don't want to process it in this way, at least this is my analysis on it. Donald Trump got elected because people were stating in their heart that they were without work. That was the demographic of people who voted for Obama, who shifted and then voted for Donald Trump, because Obama turned red states blue, as well as Trump turned blue states red. So I want people to understand that this had to do with the core people, working class people, as they say, who felt like they were being put in the back, shunned out, not being paid attention to, because their jobs were being taken from them. Well, what jobs are those? That's factory jobs. Those were jobs that they were able to go to and work 30 and 40 years and retire and get pension and 401ks and all this stuff. But times are changing. And so I want people to understand that, who was born in a generation that does not quite understand technology the way that this younger generation does, or Generation X, as they say, does. You cannot get complacent. Learn the new things, what's going on in your world. Don't get complacent what happened 30 and 40 years ago. Change with time, because whether Trump, I won't say whether he is our president. So whether you think Trump is going to take your jobs away or not, or whether he's going to give you jobs or not, it's never going to matter if you don't work what you have. And there's a difference between having a job and a career. I want people to understand that too, because a job can easily change. If you create your own career, you are in control of what goes on in your career. I want you to know that. So there is a difference. Stop waiting for somebody to do something for you and do it for yourself. Be career driven instead of job driven. Now, unless you're a teenager or a kid who's learning their way, I get it and I understand it. That's not even a problem because you have to learn before you grow. Me and Ashley was just talking about that off studio, about how you have to grow through the process before you get into the forefront. But at a certain age, you need to be able to reach back to the community, and that's what the gap and the problem comes into play, because we have people our age. You know, I'm going to be 30 this year in 2017, and it's our torch to now teach the younger generation, meaning the late 90s and early 2000 babies, what etiquette is, about how to construct and conduct yourself in the business world. We have to create that platform and we have to create that model. This is going to be the last question because we only got 2 minutes. So if you can kind of answer this in like 45 seconds to a minute.
Sure.
What does people need to do post-election that does not have to deal with on a federal level? Because what people don't fail to realize is that Trump is not the problem. It's in your backyard. It's your mayor, your governor. What do people need to do to change their situation in their country, in their state and in their city?
Yes. Well, I definitely can wrap it up really quick here. Now, I know we understand the full impact that we think has on our federal level. Yes, they're the highest aspect we see as far as the elected, but we do have the means that we need to understand who is representing us on the state and local levels. Right now, we have the Indiana General Assembly that's meeting. Our legislative session just began. And there are some very important topics that affect our everyday life that are going to committees right now. And get involved in learning what is currently being proposed to be a bill that may become a law, and then will become another, hopefully not restraint on the aspect as far as what we do to live and be sustainable in communities.
Gotcha.
I would highly recommend going to iga.in.gov.
Yes.
Find out who represents you there within the State House. In addition, there is on the local level, it's nd.gov/VIP. That's your voter information portal, and find out who represents you as well. If you have matters that matter the most to you, find out. We live in a day and age and information world where topics are being discussed. Get involved. I tell you, it brings harmony when constituents call in, email, write, tweet the elected, because it makes them feel more assured that they're making the informative decisions for the districts they have sworn to office to represent.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right. So once again, we appreciate everybody for tuning in to Insight Sundays. Again, if you want to catch this broadcast and rewatch it again, go to Facebook at Insight Sundays. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. We love you all. We will check you guys out next week.